Hello and welcome to Theme Park History, the channel for everything to do with theme parks. Old and new, big and small. In today's episode, we crank the volume up to 11 and get our lighters out for the Rock and Roller Coaster Starring Aerosmith, an enclosed launch roller coaster that opened at Disney's Hollywood Studios on July 29, 1999, and Walt Disney Studios Park on March 16, 2002. This attraction was suggested by all these fans who are ready to rock and roll, so thank you to everyone for the comments. As always, if there's any attraction you would like us to cover in a future video, leave a comment down below. You never know, your suggestion might be next month's video. Starring the world-famous rock band Aerosmith, guests go on their very own rock and roll road trip that has tons of unexpected twists, turns, and loops along the way. As the first and only looping roller coaster at Walt Disney World, the attraction launches guests from 0 to 60 miles per hour in 2.8 seconds, and features 3 inversions that reach up to 5 Gs of force, all set to the music from Steven Tyler and the Boys. With its high speeds and inversions that will make your stomach flip, Rock and Roller Coaster is not only the most intense thrill ride at Hollywood Studios, but one of the most beloved attractions located in all of Walt Disney World.
Came the Magic Kingdom, then the incredible Epcot Center. Now comes the new Disney MGM Studios theme park. The Disney MGM Studios theme park at Walt Disney World in Florida.
When Disney MGM Studios opened at Walt Disney World on May 1st, 1989, the overall consensus was the park inspired by the glitz and glamour of show business was actually quite dull and boring. Guests complained about the lack of rides at the park, which only featured 4 attractions on opening day: the Great Movie Ride, the Backstage Studio Tour, Magic of Disney Animation, and the Monster Sound Show. To fix the problem and draw visitors to their movie-based theme park instead of their competition, Universal Studios Florida, CEO of the Walt Disney Company Michael Eisner would decide to bolster the park with new, thrilling rides, adding the Indiana Jones Stunt Spectacular and Star Tours by the end of 1989. Besides the addition of these attractions based on movies by George Lucas, Disney had plans for a major expansion to take place at the park, already in development while Disney MGM Studios was still being constructed. Known as Sunset Boulevard, the new area would be themed to Hollywood during the 1940s and feature new restaurants and shops, along with 2 brand new e-ticket attractions being the centerpiece of the area: the accelerated drop tower dark ride, the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror, and a roller coaster inspired by rock and roll music, with construction starting on the new area in 1992, while the Tower of Terror and the rest of Sunset Boulevard would officially open on July 22, 1994. The Rock and Roll roller coaster was nowhere to be found, as the project was put on hold because of the company's financial issues due in part to the failure of Euro Disney. With no new major attractions added to the park since the Tower of Terror, Disney would announce on April 23, 1998 that the Rock and Roller Coaster would finally be making its way to Sunset Boulevard. Construction on the attraction had begun 2 months before the announcement in February 1998, being built on a cast member parking lot. To fit the theming of Sunset Boulevard, the roller coaster would have a focus on rock and roll music, as Sunset Strip became a popular spot with rock musicians during the 1960s and 1970s. To better portray this concept, Disney began looking for a popular rock band to become the host of the attraction. While Aerosmith would eventually become the headliner for the attraction, attraction. The band wasn't Disney's original choice, as the company first approached the Rolling Stones for the gig. While the band was interested, talks between the two sides would fall apart after Disney balked at the band's asking price of $10 million a year to use their likeness for the attraction. After missing out on the Rolling Stones, Disney would approach another iconic rock band, Kiss, to see if they would want to rock and roll all night and party every day at the park. But once again, the two sides couldn't come to a deal, as the band's asking price was said to be even more than what the Rolling Stones wanted. Just a few months away from opening and unable to sign a band to headline the attraction, Disney's last-minute plan was to ditch the host concept and instead have music from various rock bands of the 1950s, 60s, and 70s as the ride's soundtrack. Around this time, Disney had hired Aerosmith to record a song for the Touchstones Pictures film Armageddon, titled "I Don't Want to Miss a Thing." The song debuted at number 1 on the US Billboard Hot 100, giving the band their first and only number 1 single. Already in a working relationship and now with the band's sudden resurgence, Disney would approach Steven Tyler, Aerosmith's frontman, about the band coming on board to host the attraction and feature their music. Tyler was ecstatic with the proposal, and along with the band's cost being about 1/10 of the Rolling Stones' asking price, Disney would announce on June 12, 1999, that Aerosmith had agreed to a deal to become the host of the Rock and Roller Coaster. Created by Dutch amusement ride manufacturer Vekoma, the roller coaster is 3,403 feet long and reaches a max height of 80 feet. The roller coaster is the first and only looping roller coaster at Walt Disney World, featuring 2 rollover loops and 1 corkscrew which pulls up to 5 Gs of force. Using linear synchronous motors to launch the ride vehicles, each limo train goes from 0 to 60 miles per hour in just 2.8 seconds, similar to the feeling of sitting in a supersonic jet as it blasts off from the deck of an aircraft carrier. Each of the limo trains features a different Aerosmith song, with each rider's seat boasting 2 high-frequency tweeters and 2 mid-range speakers in the headrest, and 1 subwoofer mounted underneath, with a rumored price tag of $50 million. The Rock and Roller Coaster Starring Aerosmith would officially open at Disney's Hollywood Studios on July 29, 1999. As part of the grand opening celebration, Disney would host an invite-only party with Aerosmith as the guest of honor, actually riding the attraction with anyone attending. Disney would build an identical version of the roller coaster just 3 years later at Walt Disney Studios Park, called Rock and Roller Coaster avec Aerosmith. The attraction would officially open on March 16, 2002, and would be the fastest roller coaster in all of France for over 17 years.
Roller Coaster Starring Aerosmith, now jamming at the Disney MGM Studios.
Located in the Sunset Boulevard area of the park, guests enter the G-Force Records building. Inside, they pass through a room where the walls are decorated with ceiling-high guitars. The floor is decorated with a giant record, and digital posters of Disney-owned Hollywood Records artists are hanging on the walls. These posters also display the guests' names as recording artists by using scanners to read their magic bands. Guests eventually make their way to Studio C, where they encounter Aerosmith finishing up a recording session of Walk This Way in the studio with their sound engineer. The band greets the guests before their manager walks in, informing them they're going to be late for a concert they're playing on the other side of town, needing to leave now. Steven Tyler isn't happy leaving the guests behind and wants to make it up to them. A cast member in the studio with the guests yells out, "Hey Steven, how about some backstage passes. Steven likes the idea and convinces his manager to give guests backstage passes to the concert. The manager grudgingly agrees and arranges for a super stretch limo to take the guests to the concert, telling them the limo is waiting to take them to the show right outside the alley. While the manager is giving the guests their instructions, the limo that the band has hopped into drives off, leaving her behind. Guests exit the recording studio and head into the Rock and Roll parking garage, where they board their 6-car super stretch limo made to look like a 1962 Cadillac for their trip across town to the concert. Once all guests are in their limo, famous radio personality Bill St. James talks about the live broadcast of the concert that's about to start, along with all the heavy traffic surrounding the area. The limo stops in front of a highway tunnel where Tyler can be heard counting down to the start of the concert. To build up anticipation, Steven counts down from 5, and when he reaches 1, the limo launches from 0 to 60 miles per hour in less than 2.8 seconds. As the limo is launched into the tunnel, the on-ride photo is taken and a selection of Aerosmith songs play, depending on which limo guests have boarded. The roller coaster goes through 3 inversions, which are 2 rollovers and 1 corkscrew on a winding track, intended to represent various Los Angeles area freeways, including Interstate 5, Interstate 10, and US Route 101, which is evident by the street signs that periodically appear throughout the ride. The limo eventually makes it to the VIP backstage area of the concert, where guests exit their limo and walk the red carpet. Guests exit the attraction and into Rock Around the Shop, a gift shop where they can purchase their ride photo, along with merchandise from the attraction. While the track layout of the roller coaster is the same, the theming and story of the Walt Disney Studios Park version is different. Located in the backlot section of the park, the attraction is based around the making of an Aerosmith music video. The story for this version is the band has been working with engineers at Tour de Force Records to create a revolutionary new music experience. Tyler wants the guests to be the star of the music video and try out the prototype vehicle for the new experience called the Soundtracker. Many of the props from the Hollywood version are replaced with lighting rigs, projectors, strobes, and smoke effects. Just like the limo trains in Hollywood, each of the 5 Soundtrackers has its own soundtrack and light show, ensuring guests a unique, adrenaline-pumping ride experience every time. Even though the ride duration only clocks in at 1 minute and 22 seconds, the attraction has been well received with guests, due in part to the roller coaster's intensity, along with the combination of theming, story, and music to create a never-before-seen experience at Disney. While Tour de Force Records was a force to be reckoned with when it opened in 2002, the label would eventually face the music in 2018. At D23 Expo Japan 2018, Disney would announce that Tour de Force Records, along with the Rock and Roller Coaster, would be closing down to undergo a complete theme change to the Iron Man and Avengers franchise, as part of the opening of the Avengers Campus section of the park set to open in 2021. The Rock and Roller Coaster would play its final show at Walt Disney Studios Park on September 1st, 2019. With the closure of the Paris attraction, rumors began to swirl that G-Force Records could possibly suffer the same fate. It was reported by the New York Times in November 2018 that as part of the ongoing work at Disney's Hollywood studios, the Rock and Roller Coaster and surrounding area would eventually be overhauled and rethemed to an unannounced property. Disney would quickly state that the article was incorrect, declaring there were no plans to close or change the roller coaster at that time. While the reports of the roller coaster's demise were greatly exaggerated, one has to believe that it will only be a matter of time when the music stops for good. With all the changes that have been taking place at Hollywood studios over the past few years, transforming from a theme park inspired by show business to a new direction of immersive theming and attractions inspired by Hollywood stories, it's possible the attraction might undergo its own transformation to fit in with the park's new vision. Whether it's changing the overall theme of the attraction or replacing Aerosmith with the popular rock band that guests would relate to today, it looks like for now, rock and roll is here to stay at Hollywood Studios. For over 20 years, guests have been living on the edge, racing along the darkened freeways of Los Angeles with Aerosmith on the rock and roller coaster at Disney's Hollywood Studios. As one of the cornerstones of the park, the attraction has been a non-stop, gravity-defying adrenaline rush that has left anyone who rode it full of sweet emotion and even calling for an encore. If there's one thing certain about the rock and roller coaster, it's that just like rock and roll music, the ride is all about the freedom to express yourself very loudly. So that is the theme park history of the rock and roller coaster starring Aerosmith. As always, thank you for watching the video and supporting the channel. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and if you want to hear me talk more about this attraction, go check out the Ride Rehab podcast. Link to it down below. Once again, thank you for watching, and until next time, dream on, dream on, dream until your dreams come true. Really? A copyright claim for just speaking the lyrics to the song? After everything I did for Steven to make this video, this is how he's gonna repay me? Unreal.